Hi everyone, and welcome to the Android development webinar from Spanedea. Thank you for coming in today on this Sunday, and we'll make sure that it's an informative session for the next 1 hour in which you will be going through what it's to develop Android applications. We'll take a look at how the whole ecosystem of Android is for developers. And we'll stick to tradition and write a few, one or two applications that will show you how you use the tools to write Android applications. So I'll switch over to the slides now. That will then take you through the different material for Android. Okay, so we'll start with the material for the Android app development. So what are we going to do today in the next 45 minutes to 1 hour? Basically, we are going to look at what Android is, what it brings to the developers in terms of the kind of applications that you can write, the entire marketplace for Android. Then we'll take a look at what tools you need to write Android applications today. So this will take a look at the Java tools that Android and Google provide to write Android applications. We'll take a look at what tools are to do that. And finally, we're going to look at what it takes to write a simple Hello World application, and then we'll extend it a bit further by writing a simple dictionary app in Android so that you can get a feel for what it takes to write an Android application. And hopefully that should inspire you enough to then take your next steps, in your Android. But what is Android? It depends on whom you ask the question. So sometimes it's like they'll say, yeah, it's an Android is a phone. At times they'll say it's a operating system for phones. Some people will say it's a marketplace from which you can download applications. So all of them are right in their own ways. So we'll take a look at what really Android is in a summary. So for example, the screens which you see right now, it tells you what exactly Android is in terms of different bullet points. So yes, it is a software stack for mobile devices. So that basically what you mean by that is it's actually a simplified version of Linux OS, and it's basically made for the mobile phones which have less memory capacity, small screen sizes, special power requirements. So basically the Linux kernel has been modified, and that's really at the heart of Android. Now that whole thing is actually going on to the Android phones which are running today. But apart from that, from a developer perspective, it's also giving you SDK or a software development kit so that developers can get going and write applications that run on the Android handsets. Obviously, it's from Google. That's a known thing. Then there is a key point which is very critical, and why Android has got adopted at a large scale, and that is that it is open source. The entire source code for the Android modules and subsystems is available to any developer or company to download and start migrating devices that they want. So that's really how the Samsung, the HTC, Sony, they've taken the Android source code, they've modified it to make sure it's running on their hardware. And then, there's a huge amount of handsets that are there in the market, which range from almost 7,000–8,000 rupees right up to 35,000 to 40,000. So this open source nature is allowing handset manufacturers to basically take pieces of the Android OS, move it to their hardware, different camera resolutions, different memory requirements, and they can get you different price points. Now, as far as the development or the developers are concerned for Android, really the two URLs that you see over are what you need to go to to get all the required information for Android. So android.com is the central place, and developer.android.com will get you all the resources related to downloading the SDK, finding out what the documentation is for the APIs, samples, tutorials, videos, all aspects of that are available at developer.android.com. So make this as your go-to URL to get most information on Android. This is an official site from Google itself and very well documented, not like any of your typical boring documentation that's typically there on other sites. The screen that we are seeing now, which is a history of Android, and this is primarily there to give you an idea that the Android OS has been in development for a long time. It was actually not from Google, but from another company which Google acquired about 4+ years back. And if you can see on this slide here, you will find that literally around 2007, that is nearly, you can say 4.5 to 5 years back, is when the first version of Android itself was released. Obviously, that was beta, much more closed. No one knew much about it. But it just goes to show that it's been in development for a significant time, and it's got a lot of tractions in the last, you can say, 2.5 to 3 years. So if you look at the different OS versions, and if you've been in the market for an Android phone, you would have noticed that a lot of them talk about that your phone is running Android 2.2 or Android 2.3 version of the OS. And that's basically, you can now take a look at where approximately it was released. And let me speak a bit now on the different versions that you see for Android. So 2.3, which is Gingerbread, and which was released about a year plus back, is the most stable operating system for phones. So if you're looking at an Android device that you want to purchase, especially a phone, then you're better off going with either a 2.2 or a 2.3, and I would suggest a 2.3 because that's the most stable and feature-rich version of the OS for Android. Then what happened was, you would have seen in the last year or so that tablets have taken center stage in the news, and they're all over the place. There's an iPad from the Apple side of things, and then there's a multitude of tablets that are coming out on the Android side also. So Google, actually what they did is that they introduced the 3.x version, that is the honeycomb version, and this was specifically meant for tablet version of the Android OS. And then what happened was, from a developer perspective, 2.3 was for phones and 3.x was for the tablet devices. But what Google has done since then is that it has released the ice cream sandwich, or version 4x of the platform, and that is basically uniformly, it brings together both 2.x and 3.x versions, so that from a programming aspect, you can follow the same SDK. So this is a brief history of the different versions that Android has gone through. Now, this particular thing might bring up some questions in the minds of developers, that if we as developers have to develop Android applications, which version should we go with? And that's an important question. And from a developer perspective, the clear answer is that you must target a version that's the most popular, or you can say it has been the most widely accepted or purchased device. So the next slide, which we'll see right now, is actually the Android device dashboard. And what this is actually a dashboard that is published every month by Google, and Google tracks basically all the phones that are phones as well as tablets, or in other words, Android devices, and that are activated by all the people across the world as they are purchasing it. So Google keeps a track of that as far as activation of the devices are concerned. And every month, at the URL which is shown at the bottom of the slide, it publishes a platform device dashboard. In other words, it's actually a clear distribution of the percentages that the different OSs are there in the market, or I would say in the hands of the consumers. So here is a very telling statistics that you should pay attention to, and which is that 2.x version of the software of the Android OS is prevalent on nearly 94% of the devices that are out there. So today you can assume that out of every 100 Android devices, 94 of them would be running a 2.x version. So this is a clear indication that if you need to start developing Android applications, you should begin with a version that gives you maximum leeway or maximum coverage when you release your application to the marketplace. And Android, for your information, is forward compatible. So if you are going to go with a SDK version for or an API level for 2.3, it is going to work on the higher versions also, that is 3.0 and 4.0. Now, there can be this question that is being asked, that what is an API level? Now, if you look at the screen, you will find that for every row that you see over here, each of the things means the same thing. So you can either refer to it as API level 10, or in other words, that means Android 0.3 version of it. So it's really equivalent to the same thing. So I would suggest that every month you can keep a track of the various percentage-wise distribution that Google publishes, and keep in mind that it is not going to overall just change overnight. Okay. So the next slide that we are going to see is at a high level what the Android system in your phone looks at. So you've seen a bit of this in what is Android, the previous slide, but here you can start from the bottom layer, which is actually the Linux OS, which has all the drivers for the respective hardware that is there on the device. So it could be the display driver, it could be the PS driver, the memory, the camera, audio, video, any kind of hardware that's there. The drivers form the core of the Linux layer at the bottom. On top, you've got various libraries that Android builds on top of the Linux kernel. So SQLite is the database that is supported by Android, for example. WebKit is the browser that is used in the Android browsers that are there on the phone. OpenGL, the graphics support, is also there. Subsequently, on top of that is what is called as the application framework, and this is primarily what layer you will be dealing with when you are writing Android applications. So when you are developing Android apps, you will be working with the Android SDK, and the SDK is what is present in the application framework. So these are the different classes that you need to use. So for example, if you are writing any thing with which deals with making calls or receiving calls in an Android app, it would be the telephony manager API. Similarly, if you are doing anything with GPS programming where you need to get latitude and longitude, it would be the location manager API. Then activity manager, window manager, these are to do with your different screens that come up in an app, showing a screen, hiding another screen, bringing another screen on top. So basically, from a developer perspective, you are going to be working at the application framework layer, and whatever you write is going to be provided as applications that forms the very top layer of the screen. So basically, when you buy or purchase an Android phone, what you have is you have some standard applications that are already present on this device. So you've got your contacts application, you've got the calling app, you've got the browser, you've got the messaging app. So apart from that, any apps that you download from the marketplace, any apps that you develop, that would also be present on this top layer, which is the application, which will be internally here. Android application framework. The next slide that we'll see just shows a few screenshots, couple of screenshots. On the left hand side, you see the Android marketplace app that is there on the phone itself. And on the right hand side, you just go to play.google.com on your desktop, and you will see the whole marketplace that you can access from a desktop. And the nice part about this is you can directly install or download an app directly from the website. So you can just say install on your device, and you will soon see that you get a notification on your device and it starts downloading the application. So really what we've seen till now is that you looked at what the overall ecosystem is of Android, what it brings to the table as far as developers are concerned, We've taken a look at the different versions of Android, then taken a look at the different means that you can distribute, that is the marketplace. Now, what we'll do is that with this kind of an overview, we'll start going into the next section of the webinar. And this section is about looking at the different tools that are available today to you as a developer to start downloading and begin with your Android development. So the list of tools, I mean, it looks probably intimidating at first, but the key things to remember is A, these are all downloadable for free. There is no charge for any of these tools. You can just go on and get all of these tools and start developing. The Android emulator actually simulates or emulates the entire phone on your desktop, so that even if you don't have a physical Android device, you can actually write your code, compile it, and transfer it onto this virtual image on your desktop, so that you can actually test it out as if it's running in a phone, and we'll see that in a while. And to make things easier, Google also provides its own little enhancements in the form of a next plugin that makes development easier. And remember, all this thing is clearly downloadable from the sites which are shown over here. So Java SDK is downloaded from its standard Oracle SDK site. Eclipse is also freely available. The Android SDK, as I told you, developer.android.com is the main site that you go to for all your needs. So the complete download is available there. And then the last part is the Eclipse plugin. So basically go to these links and you will be all set to download all of them. And keep in mind that the download is a bit large in size. So if you're talking of Java SDK, if you're talking of Eclipse, if you're talking of Android SDK and the plugin, and maybe let's say you go in with Android 2.3 SDK as a starting point, you're looking at probably about 700 to 800 megabytes of a total download. So keep that in mind when you start downloading this entire tool set for Android development. Okay, so let's look at this whole thing now about the Android emulator or a virtual device. So basically, as I told you, the SDK provides an emulator that allows you to almost mimic a phone even if you don't have a physical one. So it's basically a complete shell that comes up when you are developing, and you can run your application, test it out even within a physical device. And you can target any particular version, whether it's 2.2 or 3. Version 2.2 or 2.3. So the next slide actually contains a screenshot of the Android emulator, and which we will see in a while, where actually it mimics the complete Android phone, and you can run your applications. You can even test them out. Of course, you cannot test out every aspect of the hardware, but for most applications, you can simulate a few things, but otherwise this covers almost 80 to 90% of your needs. Definitely nothing like a real device when you are testing out your Android applications, but the Android emulator that is available within the Android SDK is a good starting point to do most of your application testing. So to summarize, you've got the Java SDK, you have got the Eclipse environment, and you have got the Android SDK. These three things together is good enough for you to start developing, building app, and even making it ready to publish in the Android marketplace. Okay, so now that we've seen a little bit overview of what Android is, what it brings to the table in terms of what you call as the tool sets that are available. Now let's start looking at how do we write a simple application in Android, and we'll stick to our typical tradition of writing a hello world application, and which you'll see that it's not really that difficult to get started with a hello world. But then what we'll do is, after we see hello world, we'll also look at another small application that shows how do you write a simple dictionary application in Android. So once we are done with these two, then we'll move on to some of the Q&A. That's really the plan now for the next half hour. So I'm going to start, sharing my screen so that you can see the entire development environment over here. So just give me a minute while I share my entire screen. Okay, so basically what I have now over here is the Eclipse environment that is going to, we are going to use that to develop the entire application. So, and we'll start off with the Hello World, but before that, I just want to also show you the emulator which I have got running over here. So, the emulator that comes up is basically the entire Android phone. It sort of mimics the entire device, and if you have used an Android phone before, it's pretty much similar to that, where you can take a look at all your applications, run any of them. So as you develop your applications, that also will be visible over here, and you can test it out. So let's go back to the Eclipse environment, where we are going to start developing the first Hello World application. So I've got everything set up over here. This is the Eclipse which I have launched. Now let's start going through it step by step. So basically, you do a file, new, and a project. Okay. And that brings up a sort of a wizard. So I'm just going to go to the Android wizard and select that I want to write an Android project and click on next. Now it brings up another wizard screen that says please give it a project name. So I'm going to just give it Hello World Android app as my name. I'll select the create a new project and let it be in the default location. All I need to do is click on next. Now this brings up several APIs that I may have installed, and as I told you that Google has, Android over the years has produced several APIs. So we can go with Android 2.3 version, which is the most popular version for the phone. Now we can select that for compilation purposes. Click on next. And then, if you're familiar with Java, you need to give a particular package name. So this can be any package name that you want. So this is basically like your application identifier. And it has a default activity created. And what this means is that an activity in Android is similar to a screen in Android. So an Android application can contain one or more screens. So by default, the Eclipse project generates one activity for you. So basically your application will at least have one main screen that will come up. We go with the defaults and simply click on finish. Okay. So what it has done is it's generated the code for you. It generates a bunch of files which we'll go through when we do the next one. But at this point in time, in order to just run this application, I have not written any code. I just said, create my Android project structure and let's see what the default Hello World looks like. So there are various ways now that you can start running it. So one option is you can just right click this, select run as and say Android application. That's one way to do it. Or, if you prefer certain shortcuts over here, you can even, do a run as from and as an Android application. So either way, I mean, that you want to run. So let's go ahead and say I want to run the Hello World Android application that we've just generated. I'll go and click that. As you can see, over here it starts generating and installing it, and I'll open up my emulator, and you'll find that it's already executed the application with just one label that is shown. So if I maximize this for you, you will see that all the Hello World application did was it launched the application, and it just has a simple label that says that it's the Hello World thing. Now, since this is a normal Android phone, you'll find that I can go back to home. Then I can even look at different applications that are running. So you will find that the Hello World application actually has got installed over here, which we just wrote, and I can even run directly from here as if I'm just executing a normal app, and here it is. You will find the same application that's come up. So writing a Hello World in Android is at the end of the day, one can say that, hey, what does this application really do? But it also goes to show you the simplicity of creating the entire project workspace over here. You have different source files that are generated for you, and you can start modifying these things directly. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to a slightly extension of not Hello World, but we are going to look at a simple dictionary application and see how that has been written. So before we see how it's written, I would first show you the application run, so that you understand what it is that we are writing in terms of the application. So I'm going to go back to my emulator, and I've already installed the sample app over here. Let me maximize it for you. So it's called the My Dictionary application over here, and I'll just launch that. And what you find over here is it's a very straightforward Android application which has just one simple screen, but it is allowing you to almost write a live dictionary which is powered by a web service at the back end. So for example, if you provide let's say a word that you want to find the definition for, you can enter the word and you can simply click on look up definition, and this what it will do is behind the scenes it is going to make a call to a web service that is hosted by a company called WordNik. So they provide a dictionary service where which if you provide a word, they give you back the definition. So basically our Android application, what it is doing is it has got a simple screen, it takes in a user input, and on click of the button it actually makes a network call to the web service to retrieve the definition of the word. So let me just click the lookup definition now, and you will find that in a moment it made a call to the web service and it got back the definition of the word webinar also. You can try some other words if you want. So we can try what's engine as a definition, and it gets the definition out for you. So it's a live dictionary app written in Java for the Android phone. And now we are going to start splitting this up and seeing how this is written, so that you get a flavor for what it means to write applications like this. So I'm going to switch back to Eclipse, that is my development environment. I'm going to just close this Hello World app that we wrote right now, and open up the dictionary app which I have running, and it has the same source structure. So first we are going to look at what the user interface looks like. So the user interface in Android development or the projects, when you look at, is defined in a file called main.xml under the layout folder. And if I just open this file in the editor, let me maximize this also, you will find that it's got a complicated looking XML, but that's not to worry about. You also have got a graphical layout which I'll just go to, and you will find that the entire screen is shown over here with different elements. So as you can see, you can drag and drop various elements from the left hand side onto your form. So here I've got one button, I've got one text field, I've got one label, I've got an image. So you know what I'm doing is I'm actually building my UI where I'm creating, let's say, images and media, right? I've got this particular uh, image view. So I've actually taken and dragged and dropped it over here. Then I've got a label. Then I've got an input field or an edit field or a text box, whatever you may want to call it. And then I've got a button. And below this is an empty space where once I retrieve my definition from the web service, I display the results over here. Now, there are various ways. You can either be in the graphical layout, but you can also look at the XML. So it gives you a good idea of what's happening. So let me switch to the XML part. So as you can see on your screen now, you will find that basically the image is the first thing that's there on the top. Then I've got a label, then I've got a text field, and then I've got a button which when clicked should stop. So if I just click any of this, or let's say if I go back to my graphical view, and if I click on the button, see it shows you the button view that this is the actual code. So it's very straightforward. It just says that it is a button, it's got an ID, it's got a particular height and width, which is match parent, just basically maps it to whichever is the parent container. And then we've got what does the text look like. So it's an indirect lookup. So this definition is all present in XML files over here in strings.xml, which will come up here. So you find these are all indirect lookups, which is actually shown on the screen over there. So now let's look at the code, right? So our application just got one screen. So basically it's just got one activity. That's how the Java Android code is written. So if you're familiar with Java syntax, it's very straightforward. So basically our screen extends the main Android activity, and all you need to do is say that in the onCreate, which is called by Android when the screen is created, that what is my screen going to look like. So if you find we are using the main over here to tell Android that my screen layout is to be taken from the main XML which you see over here, right? This one. And that's what. So I'll just switch back to the source code. And so once I've told Android how my activity is going to look like, the next thing I'm going to do is I have to write a click listener. That is when someone clicks on the button, what should I do? So as you can see, I'm just getting a handle to the button in this line, and then I'm writing an inner class for the on-click listener. It just says that if someone clicks this button, find out what is the text that was entered by the user, that is this part of the code. If it's empty, we do some basic validation that, hey, you know, please enter a word so that I can go and search for it. And if everything is good, I'm actually making a network call over here that invokes the wordnik library which is present on the internet, and it gets the definition. And once it gets the definition, it simply sets the text of the field. So really, and of course, I'm doing some basic exception handling. Toast in Android is a simple message box that can come up for a while and then it will disappear. So again, to go to the flow, it's straightforward. When my activity or the screen is created, make it look like what I have defined in my main XML. Then I'm going to write a handler for my button and say that if someone clicks it, retrieve the word that's entered in the text field, check if it's empty or not, and if it's not empty, make a network call, get the result, and show that in the screen. Again, running this application is again the same way that we saw before. Simply click on the application. You can do a run directly from the toolbar, or you could do a run as, I'll show you the other way here. So run as an Android application. I click emulator and I say OK. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . Okay. So I'm just going to bring up the emulator here, and the application is going to come up in a while over here. So you see that it's going to come up. Okay. So this was the same UI which I defined. So I had the image on top, then I had the label, then I had a text field, and then I had a button. And basically I put the listener on the button. So I'm going to, let's say, enter the word and click on the lookup definition. This is going to invoke the click listener, and in return it is going to go and make a call to the network service. So it takes a while to make the HTTP call, and it gets back the data. So here it is. This shows you the actual definition that's got back from the dictionary service that is hosted on the internet. So this is an overview of how we wrote a simple Android application to invoke a dictionary service on the web and show that. So this should give you a good feel now for what are the tools that are out there, what it means to write an Android application. Obviously there's much more to it, but this should show you that with basic download of stuff and a bit of tutorials, you should be good enough to get started with it. So I'm going to switch back now to my slides. Okay, so this slides they show that we've gone through the Hello World application. Then we saw the how the Hello World basic one was generated in terms of we just took a project, we just generated the new code and ran it on the emulator. It did nothing but just showed us a starting template that you can actually use to do that. And this is basically an overview of how we wrote the dictionary application. So on the left hand side, you will see that we had the dictionary app where we took in an input from the user. That was the first step. Then it made a call to a web service that's running on the internet. It got the data. And once it got the data, it actually displayed the definition of the word for you. So just to let you know, Wordnik is a service that's available on the net. It's called wordnik.com. It's a dictionary site also. It gives you an API. So one of the question is, how do you include the dictionary API in the package? Basically, it's the jar file that Wordnik provides. And if you're familiar with Java, you simply take the jar file and link it up in your Android application, and you are good to go. Okay, so that's pretty much in terms of what we had for the content, and so we saw at a high level what the Android ecosystem is about, what it brings to the table for developers. Then we took a look at what the different tools are for Android, and then we had a quick overview of what it means to write a simple Hello World application, and then we just saw a slight extension of it where we wrote a simple dictionary app, or just basically we dissected how the dictionary app was written. Now to summarize, developer.android.com, this should be your main URL for going for any Android related resource. The third point over there is the Google Marketplace account, and I strongly recommend that for $25 you can actually get started and publish your own apps, and it's just a one-time registration fee. Okay, so we'll take in the Q&A. This is the website that for the company that I run. Basically, we're into training, and we have a 2-day Android training course, which any of you are interested. Subsequently, you can visit the site or write to me directly, and we can take it forward from there. And to summarize the 2-day Android course, it basically happens over a weekend. It's completely hands-on course, and basically you come over there for 2 full days. We write a bunch of Android apps, look at different Android APIs, and it's taken now quite well since last August, September. And the next dates I've announced for April 21, 22. So if any of you all are interested, it will be held in Mumbai. The URL is there. You can always take a shot. So now what we're going to do is, to summarize, we're going to do the Q&A. We've got a bunch of questions that have been asked in the webinar. And what we've done is we've taken some of them down, and we're going to show them one by one on the screen, which you will see. And I'll take a shot at answering them.
Thank you so much for attending the webinar today. This is Romin Irani from Mindstorm Software, and I wish to thank Spanedea for giving me the opportunity to conduct this webinar. Thank you and bye.